Hello, hello. It's Nicholas Rosseinsky here with week 8 of our Frontiers of Therapy and Spirituality adventure. And this week, I'm going to start a second pass at a deeper level through some of the material that was covered in weeks 1 to 6. And for all the earlier episodes of this adventure, you can find those on the Center for Human Awakening YouTube channel. Just click on the Center for Human Awakening text down here. And as usual, the ongoing focus or center of our tour is going to be Richard Harvey's Sacred Attention Therapy, or SAT. You can find out more about that on the YouTube channel or at www.centerforhumanawakening.com. Now, as I mentioned last week, as we go deeper on this second pass, I'm going to choose a particular perspective or viewpoint to organize our journey. And that is to focus more on the collective societal systems, institutions, and practices from an awakening perspective. However, as I'll explain this week, you can't totally separate, of course, the collective level from the personal level. The emergence of awakening-congruent collective level systems can only accelerate and amplify the number of individual awakening trajectories that are occurring on this planet. One useful frame for the planetary journey in individual, collective, and cosmic dimensions is to look towards what I call the next great phase of human civilization. And the way I delineate different phases is in terms of what percentage of humankind understands the awakening imperative. Now, one day, the whole universe will be awakened. This is what I called destiny last time. But sometime before that, there'll be a phase where 100% of humankind understands this. But that isn't what I call the next great phase. This phase, the next great phase, is somewhere between today's maybe 0.01% and the future's 100%. So today, I'm not going to put a figure on the X% that defines this next great phase. Instead, I'll define it qualitatively in terms of two factors. First, this number X, whatever it is a sort of critical factor that makes the following move from X to 100 irrevocable or certain. And then second, and relatedly, a good portion of this X% must be inside new awakening-congruent systems, for example, new forms of economic organization. And this is actually super important in terms of guaranteeing this move from X% to 100%. The demonstration of new systems is as important as the number of people in this X. Now, to demonstrate this, I'm going to introduce a new and entirely imaginary construct, the flourishing of human awakening based solely on the personal cosmic relationship, i.e. if it took place without any consideration of collective systems. And I suggest that if the awakening movement were to neglect the collective axis, it wouldn't reach this blue circle critical mass in time. Instead, would only create this smaller green circle of awakening-oriented folk. Now, as usual, this isn't a criticism or diminution of the human awakening path, which is absolutely essential. In fact, human awakening is the center and foundation of everything I'm talking about. Rather, it's to highlight the need for complementary, synergistic approaches at the frontiers of human awakening. So why won't human awakening without transformation of societal systems be enough to generate critical mass? Here I show the pushback on awakening from societal systems such as certain versions of science and specific dynamics in economy and in the political arena. This pushback tends to keep us where we are now instead of advancing to the next great phase and beyond. Now, the significance of this push from the collective level against personal awakening into cosmic identity is one of the reasons I suggested last time that sensitive and sometimes exquisitely nuanced transformational activity in societal systems is a crucial frontier currently. And in case the magnitude and significance of this pushback isn't clear, we have to acknowledge that certain dynamics in societal systems can be channels for the very mechanism of the alleged separation or the imagined fall. And recall that the darkness depicted here is a cosmic scale movement. Now, this isn't to demonize or to blame collective systems. I personally can only be vulnerable to this push if I myself haven't fully relinquished participation in the alleged separation. However, as I'll explain next time, if we take two specific people, one may be more sensitive to and affected by this collective pushback. So the other, who awakens through and despite this pushback, may then turn to collective transformation to make it easier for the others to awaken. Here I depict this movement as the initiation of a new set of societal systems based on a new Science 5, new systems whose existence and message reduce the drag from the systemic versions that are themselves prone to promoting separation. Now, I've titled this slide HA, or Human Awakening, plus the Awakening of Matter. And the relationship between these societal transformations and the Awakening of Matter perspective might not be entirely clear. Recall I'm using the term Awakening of Matter for the dispelling of the guilt and fear content that was parceled up into matter energy just before the Big Bang. Now, what directly does that cosmic dispelling have to do with human systems like healthcare or the economy? The crucial connection is that the viewpoint or understanding of reality, which yields the Awakening of Matter theme, also gives rise to Science 5 as an active scientific component in total awakening. We don't get Science 5 without an Awakening of Matter outlook, and we don't get the societal transformations we need here ultimately without a Science 5 foundation. Now, this point goes back to the specific and unusual cosmic level narrative established in week 2, and it differentiates this "we need societal transformation" call from those already out there. It establishes a new frontier in the territory, so to speak. Now, although reducing collective level drag is a crucial contribution from a joint human awakening of matter outlook, it's not the only one. Adding the Awakening of Matter, for example, by adopting week 4's SAT-C++ view, we can power up the lift that the practices of therapy and spirituality give to the awakening movement. For example, via innovations in the inner frontiers of SAT, discussed briefly in week 5. A third contribution to achieving critical mass from the joint human and matter awakening outlook is the sharpening of shared focus on the destination we are really headed towards. Sharper focus means greater alignment, not just amongst humans, but also the alignment of humanity with the very purpose of this universe in its current matter-laden form. That purpose is not just the awakening of all sentient beings, as far away as that might seem. Instead, the awakening of the universe can be viewed as the awakening of sentient beings, for example, as is the focus of core SAT, and, or plus, the awakening of matter, as viewed in extensions such as SAT-C+. Now, over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to focus in more depth on this awakening of matter complement to human awakening. First, examining its relationship to human awakening in the field of spirituality next week in week 9, and then going deeper into scientific and societal implications in weeks 10 and 11. Through these examinations, I want to illustrate how humankind can start to actively join in with the awakening of matter dynamic that's absolutely fundamental to the current universe, and so how we can co-lead ourselves and everything else to destiny. I'm Nicholas. Thanks for watching. See you next time.